That's good applause. I heard someone, Vice President, say the other day it'd been determined to be psychologically harmful to stifle an applause. So you should have gotten out of your system there this morning. But good morning and welcome to a pretty neat company, a very neat company, as a matter of fact. And we're going to talk more about it in a few moments. But right now, it's my pleasure to welcome our honored guests to Georgia once again. Welcome back to Georgia, Mr. Vice President Biden. Thank you. I thank you personally, but I want to thank you publicly in front of this group for your attendance here in Georgia during our flood episode and for your and the President's quick attention to the needs here in Georgia. And we very much appreciate the compassion that you and your administration shown during that dreadful time in our state's recent history, and we're very grateful, and I'm very pleased today that your visit is on much more pleasant terms, and we're glad to have you here today because this is an exciting announcement as well, and it's something that we've been working on here in Georgia for over 3 years. In fact, it's actually something I began campaigning on in 2002 about a connected Georgia. We talked about then at a wired Georgia, understanding that the future of Georgia needed infrastructure of the 21st century, and that this would be literally the dial tone of the future as we go forward. And just as we've looked to roads and to phone lines to open up markets in our history, broadband access really is the tool. And we can learn firsthand from this company today. It's a tool to compete in today's global information-based economy. And Ron and his family have demonstrated that to me and the Vice President on our tour. I see Commissioner Tommy Irvin out here, and he a native of this region. He'll tell you that up until the mid-'60s, this region was fairly isolated, not only from the state but from the world. And obviously the modern highways, Mr. Vice President, the Appalachian Regional Commission has had a huge impact on the success of this region. And the only way the citizens up here could get around was on small 2-lane, winding snake roads. I see some natives out there, and it hampered travel in this part of the state. But even more, it penalized the local economies as being disconnected. And just as the modern highway system opened up North Georgia economy to the nation, I am convinced that broadband will open up North Georgia's economy to the global economic world, and that's what we're anxious about. Broadband has long been one of our state's strategic goals, and at my request, I see our legislators out here. I want to thank you all for appropriating money in 2006 to support rural broadband access, and we also used our One Georgia money, Mr. Vice President, which was our tobacco settlement money, to help replace those jobs with jobs of the future with broadband in our economy here. So we had a strong group rallying around this idea and collaborating to win this competitive grant. And I want to thank all of you who had participated in this region for your hard work and your support and your efforts. It really demonstrates, Mr. Vice President, the kind of partnership that we have here. In Georgia, we like for everybody to have some skin in the game. And while you're bringing the big check, these local communities, not only public but private communities and the citizens and state, local, state, and federal partnership. This is a great example of that partnership that I think will serve our nation very well. The $42 million investment that will create a 260-mile open access to the regional fiber ring here in Northeast Georgia is a key step for the future of this part of the state. It means gigabits. That's high speed for not only public but private entities. 82 public schools, 7 colleges, 4 hospitals, 42,000 households, and more than 9,000 businesses just like this that will benefit from this high-speed access. It's going to benefit not only Impulse Manufacturing, but Georgia businesses and Georgia families in the years ahead. It's going to promote economic development and expand educational opportunities and improve the availability and the efficiency of government services. And now, before we get to the big man with the big check, I want to tell you in whose place we're located here today. This is truly a cutting-edge industry, no pun intended, Ron. But the kind of high-tech manufacturing they're doing here, the Vice President and I were looking at the variety of products that they produce. It's not only high-tech, but it's a family. It brings the technology of the future with the values of the past. It's a family with Ron and his wife Jan and 3 sons and other great employees here at Impulse Manufacturing. Ron, thank you for letting us interrupt your work day here today to come and to demonstrate in a very practical way what this kind of technology and this kind of support between our federal, our state, our local governments, and our EMCs can do for the future of a region and do for a company. Help me welcome Ron Braisden to the podium.
Oh, we've not been inconvenienced at all. My name's Ron Braisden. I am the president of Impulse Manufacturing. And Jan and I and the 3 sons and the rest of all these great employees that we have here really want to welcome the Vice President, the Governor, and all the distinguished guests that we've got here. You know, I can only tell you we're just a little bit blown away at the moment. It's really not often that one gets a governor to come and visit them. And I got a feeling it's a whole lot less often that you get a vice president to come visit you. And the only thing I can say is we feel like we hit the trifecta. We got all of them in here at one time. And it's just great, and we really appreciate this opportunity. You made the comment about what things used to be like. When we moved here in 1995, if you wanted to ask a phone number, when you called the 411, you got a girl and you could hear her flipping the pages of a phone book. And then she'd give you the number and she would say, don't bother to call them right now, they're on vacation and they won't be back until tomorrow. So great strides have happened since that period, and I'm sure this is going to move us a whole lot farther along from that. Impulse Manufacturing is a precision metal fabricator. It utilizes the absolute latest technologies in metal fabrication as well as process control. You will find equipment like this in other places, but you won't find this combination in one place. We cut parts with laser beams. We weld parts with robots. We utilize the latest technologies in computer-driven machines to make parts. All of it trying to get pricing and costing as low as possible and to get it out the way the guy wants it the first time and to hopefully make a nickel on it when you get through with that sort of thing. We are absolutely on the leading edge of the technologies, but we have no product that we make of our own. We only build to other customers' specifications, which is part of the reasons for all of this is so much information has to be transmitted. We got to get away from snail mail to make it happen. And there's just such packets of data moving that it curtails the ability to handle the markets as they're moving right now. Our parts find their way into everything from school buses to cooling systems on reefers to heavy equipment to tractors to baggage handling systems, training systems, pleasure crafts, and all kinds of industries. Most likely when the Gitmo crowd may or may not move, there's a good chance they'll be sleeping on a bed that was made here at Impulse Manufacturing. One thing though, today, we are all really familiar with the 2 wars that are going on overseas. There's a third war that's really taking place here in America today, and it is just as brutal as those wars are, just doesn't have the blood flow, but it does have the lifeblood that's being drained out of manufacturing in this part of the country. It is being sapped. China at this point is actually dumping so much manufactured product, as an example, for less than I can buy raw materials for. And we process millions of pounds of steel in a month's time. And they can drop it in here that way. Something is just fundamentally wrong. Manufacturing in this country is struggling, and we're really losing ground as a result of that. The losses we're taking, it's not just because of the current economic climate. A lot of people like to point to that. That has only made the pain come at us in a more accelerated manner. This is really the other war that we as Americans really can't afford to lose. We can't just keep serving hamburgers to each other. We got to make something. Governor Perdue, and along with the legislature in this state, I got to admit, has been very aggressive. They've come up with wonderful programs. You've seen pictures here on walls and stuff of from Head Start to whomever that has really helped to aggressively attack some of the barriers that we have. As a result, there's a lot of industry, and a lot of our business really comes from people in this region and opens our doors really to ship probably over 20% of our product to other states and a little bit to foreign countries. I understand here today that Vice President Biden is here to talk about another one of these barriers to remove that is hamstringing our industry. And we are so excited, as you can well imagine, that we were picked to be the venue for such an announcement like that that's going to be made. There has been much talk about helping businesses, particularly the small family-owned business. And here today we're going to see some of this talk turned into some real action. Vice President Biden, I really want to welcome you. And the whole state, I'm sure, welcomes you, and Impulse as a whole welcomes you.
Thank you. Thank you all very much. Thank you so much. Thank you. You're very kind. Thank you. Please be seated. Thank you. Thank you very much. Sonny, Governor, it really is a pleasure to be with you, and it's been a pleasure working with you. Sonny has spoken to me on the phone, and I him more than he ever thought he's going to have to speak to any vice president, I guess, because we've been working together on a lot of things, and I want to thank him for his cooperation. I want to thank him for his leadership, and also Michael Thurman. You've got your hands full here, and you're working like the devil in this state, along with Tommy Irwin, the Department of Agriculture. Just don't take all our broiler business down here from Delaware, okay? You know, and I understand that the Mayor Pro Tempore of Dawsonville is here, Calvin Byrd. I don't know where you are. There you are, Calvin. Thank you. You're too young, Calvin, I tell you. You know, I was elected when I was 29, so I'm only kidding. And I understand you have a number of county commissioners and officers here from 3 adjoining counties, and I want to welcome you all. I used to be a county commissioner. I left that for the Senate because I found it too difficult. It was easier to go to the United States Senate, and I want to thank Ron and his family for the warm welcome they've given us here. Look, folks, as Ron indicated, you know, at rock bottom, one of the reasons that the governor suggested and we picked this particular facility, it's about manufacturing too. I hosted yesterday. I run a thing called the Middle Class Task Force. And the President and I don't believe that we can remain only a service economy in the 21st century. I start off with the proposition that I see no reason why we can't once again lead the world in manufacturing. I refuse to accept the notion that that can't be. Whether it's automobiles or it's train sets or it's manufacturing the new technology of the future, windmills, solar panels. You know, this is a big, big opportunity we have here, a big opportunity, because Democrats and Republicans are basically on the same page. This economy, and I agree with Ron, we were losing ground for the past 25 years in manufacturing. This didn't happen. It wasn't George Bush's fault. It's not Barack Obama's fault. It was a process here. And look, we believe very strongly, we as an administration, and I suspect the governor and his administration and all governors and all elected officials across the country, we believe very strongly that the middle class is the backbone of the economy of this country. It's also the leavening influence on the extremes that exist in this country. And we got to build the middle class. The only way you build the middle class is allow men and women to be able to have jobs where they can, on a paycheck or possibly 2, live in a decent neighborhood that's safe with the hope that they can send their kid to school, that they can participate. They can participate in the growth of the country. And they've been kind of left out the last 15 years as productivity has risen, and a lot of middle-class folks, even though they did everything right, they found themselves behind the 8 ball. We don't want an economy built on another bubble, whether it was during a Democratic administration, the dot-com bubble, or during a Republican administration, a housing bubble. We want to do what our grandparents did, build a firm foundation, a firm new foundation built on reality that allows us to compete. Look, one of the things Sonny's, I like the guy, the one thing I know we agree on a lot of things, one thing we agree on, never, 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 never in the history of America, when the American people are given a fighting chance, have they not responded. Never once. Never once. And so we got to put you, Ron, in a position. We got to put your employees in a position. We got to put the people of rural Georgia and rural Delaware and urban Los Angeles in a position where they got a fighting shot. They got a shot to have a decent job, to make what the world will take, to be in a position that we can once again lead the 21st century. You know, we can't do it. We cannot lead the 21st century with the same educational circumstance we find ourselves today, with the same energy policy we have today, with the same health care. We just can't do it. Everybody knows it's got to change. But it's a funny little thing. In the process of this, it gets us down to new technologies that are available. We rank 15th in the world in broadband access. Think about that. We rank 15th in the world in the number of people we graduate from college as a percent of the population. When I tell people that, they go, America? 15th in the world? I understand you saying 15th in the world and you know, how many widgets we make because of the unfair trade practice, but 15th in the world in college graduates, 15th in the world in one of the elemental tools for technological growth in a country. And so, folks, you know, if you don't mind me giving you a Georgia perspective here about innovation. You know, in 1793, there was a young man from the north who accepted an invitation to stay as a guest at Mulberry Grove Plantation near Savannah. And when he was there, there were 2 dinner guests who were talking about agriculture and the economy, and specifically about how hard it was to separate upland cotton from its seeds. And the young man was told that a machine that could efficiently separate the two would be a great thing both for the country and for the inventor. So this young guy began to build that machine. He got a set of wire teeth and a series of wooden cylinders, and 6 months later, right here in Georgia, Eli Whitney invented the cotton gin. And with it, he sparked a revolution in the American economy that would last for generations, not just in Georgia, but for the entire nation. Whitney later said of his approach, and I quote, "One of my primary objectives is to form the tools so the tools themselves can fashion the work." Well, folks, that's why we're here today. We're forming the tools that will in turn fashion the work of the 21st century. We're using the American Recovery and Reinvestment Act to spark new growth, to tap into inventiveness, and the inventiveness not just in this company, but of the American people generally, rural and otherwise. The tools they need to succeed in a new economy. But not just that, to help them build that new economy. Not just so that they can succeed, help them build that economy. You know, look, in order to share in the prosperity that we will create, you're going to have to see a lot of things change. The president signed the Recovery Act into law, and he had 2 goals when he signed this bill, which has been, I would argue, much maligned, although now everybody's beginning to realize it's actually had real impact. The first thing was to create the jobs for today, because a lot of people are hurting, folks. You know a lot of people are hurting. I come from Scranton, Pennsylvania, northeast Pennsylvania. My grandpa Finnegan used to have an expression. He said, when the guy in Dixon City, which was a suburb of Scranton, when the guy in Dixon City's out of work, it's an economic slowdown. When your brother-in-law's out of work, it's a recession. When you're out of work, it's a depression. It's a depression for millions of Americans. millions of hard-working Americans who did nothing wrong but play by the rules. So our first and most immediate requirement was to create jobs, pull some of those folks out of that black abyss they fell into through no fault of their own, because they're living through a depression, those folks. But the second part of this Recovery Act was to lay the foundational blocks to build an economy for tomorrow. As I said, not based on any bubble. And today, right here in Dawsonville, through a historic investment in broadband technology, I think we're going to do both. Look, let's just take a minute to talk about broadband. And it's funny that Sonny explains it the same way I've been going around. Broadband is a fancy word. You know, you go say to my mom, who's alive and well and 93, and as she would say, sharp as a tack, you say broadband, and it's a different language. What's broadband mean? Well, it's high-speed internet. What does that mean? Well, the fact of the matter is, you know, think of, as the governor said, a two-lane crown top road that dominated this part of the state and 3/4 of my state of Delaware, like Georgia State Route 9. Traffic moves pretty slowly at times. Cars get jammed up. You can't get where you're going all that quickly, especially if you got to go a long distance, assuming that's the only road that can connect you to Atlanta or wherever else you wanted to go. That's what we got now. We got, in terms of in rural communities like this, and in my area, and in upstate New York, and in northern Maine, and I can list places all over the country, we got essentially a Georgia Route 9. We don't have Georgia I-85, an interstate that can put a whole lot more vehicles, a whole lot more folks, a whole lot more tonnage on the road, and even when it's congested, get people further faster to their destination with more product in the process. Now that's kind of like high-speed internet. It is a 4-lane interstate versus a crown top Route 9. Look, more cars are moving faster on the interstate. There's not a traffic jam. They get where they're going. They get there more quickly. They don't waste as much time. Time is money. And it's the same thing about information. It's about more information at your fingertips, getting to you more quickly. It's about getting large amounts of data, be able to come to you where you can not only just text it and see it, but you can visually see it. If the spectrum is broad enough, you can see it. You can talk simultaneously. I was on the telephone yesterday with 2 world leaders in a room called the Situation Room, who were 12,000 miles away. It was a secure line. No one could intercept what we were saying. We were talking about the war in Afghanistan, and I'm able to sit there and talk to General McChrystal directly, immediately, and without any concern about whether the information we're transferring is being picked up and or something's being missed. Well, that's what we need to have happen for business generally, for people generally. Look, folks, there's make no mistake. This is a historic investment. Today, it's nearly $200 million in grants and loans we're going to announce, and over the next 75 days, we're going to announce another $2 billion in loans and grants. And when it's all said and done, we'll be awarding $7.2 billion for access to broadband in areas like Dawsonville and all around the country. The state of Georgia has been in on the deal. Sonny used the phrase skin in the game. They got skin in the game. They're ahead of us. They said this is an important thing to do to build this ring. Right now, more than 33 million of that is going right here in the North Georgia network, which y'all set up. A private-public partnership that is going to be doing the work, laying the broadband lines that will simply make everybody's life easier and better. Now, I can stand up here and talk to you about the middle-mile infrastructure and the internet backbones and the underlying technology behind what we're doing, but it's kind of simple. I know you all get it, but I'm not sure everybody gets it, especially generationally gets it. It's kind of like you got this big hub, this so-called backbone, and it's sitting somewhere else and has all the connection. This middle mile connects you to that backbone. It's like a trunk line. Without that middle mile, there's no way for someone in your town right now to be able to go all the way and connect to that backbone, which is the vehicle that provides all this information. And it's very costly to build that backbone. And private enterprise are not going to make that investment because they can't see an immediate return. So the federal government with the state government is doing what we've always done, whether it's a rural electrification project, the TVA, a whole lot of other things. You'd still have no lights here. You'd have still no lights in Selbyville, Delaware. We'd not have a rural electrification project because it wasn't economical to come to a community that was small, and particularly to go to a farm that was 12 miles out. Who's going to pay for that? So the federal government and the state governments got together and they attracted folks to come in, because if you have this so-called middle mile, this middle hub, this trunk line, it's a lot cheaper to hook into it, and you provide access for people to hook into it who are private providers that charge money. They make the investment, getting the last mile out there. But guess what? They make money. That's okay. And the other thing is they make a big investment, and people get access. What I'm interested in here is not the skeletal explanation of what this broadband is all about. What I'm interested in is what high-speed internet is going to do for you and for Georgians throughout this region. What does broadband really mean? What can it do? Well, I can tell you, it can. What I'd like to discuss with you is what it can do, what broadband can do, and how important it is to look around and see right now what it can't do, what you can't do without it. Look no further than right here at Impulse. They employ 150 people and have precision metal customers all around the world, mostly in the United States, customers who want to be in regular contact with Impulse. Right now, the company is relying on a slow internet access that can't handle customer requirements all the time. The customers send large email files, sometimes carrying the project specifications, drawings that Impulse needs in order to do the job. But that emails that frequently bounces back, meaning, the highway's too small to put that much information on it to get there. So it bounces back to the customer. Well, and then this forces major customers like Bluebird or Yamaha to look around and find out whether they can send their specifications, their email, somewhere else. They're going to go to the place where they can get immediate response. The reason why it does so well is explaining to me, you should look back there at a particular company he was talking about. They call today, say they want this much manufactured, this is how many parts they need for whether it's a school bus or whether it's a motorcycle, whatever it is. And by the next morning or 2 mornings later, they got it in there and they're able to install it. That's how these big companies make money, and medium-sized companies make money in real time. They're not going to wait around. So they may take their business elsewhere, especially for a company that does about 20% of its business out of state. This is a major problem for a small business like Impulse, putting them at a globally competitive disadvantage as they grow. Well, with the broadband access, that's going to change. When companies have high-speed internet, they naturally invest more in their websites, so the customers have a place to go. I was trying to explain a website to my mom, and I said, Mom, it's like it used to be in the 30s and 40s when department stores would fill their windows with as many items that they sold as possible, so as you're walking down the street, you look in and say, do I want to walk through the door? I mean, think about it. I know we make this really complicated. But, they realize how important that aspect of their business is for customer relations. And the thing that I found amazing, Sonny and I kept asking the boss, well, how do you get your customers? That's incredible. He said, word of mouth. A lot of it. They see what good work we do. They go on the internet. They see what we produce. Well, it's kind of amazing. Well, that's exactly what Impulse plans to do. Not only be in a better position to receive this bulk information that they need in real time and respond to it, but also let customers they don't have know what they can do. Customers who do business with Impulse will have access to a new and improved company website. If you're an Impulse customer like Yamaha or Bluebird, they can get real-time updates on the status of your orders, and where Impulse can access and store information for repeat customers. I won't go through it, but it was interesting, Ron telling me how a lot of this stuff never touches a human hand. And they you get the order, you put it in, it goes through the process, and all of a sudden you got one of these guys stamping it out and sending it out. Look, without broadband companies like Impulse, even though they are cutting-edge companies putting out good product, they're not going to be able to compete globally. And the point I was making to Ron is there's no reason, in my view, why you're not going to be expanding this plant twice its size in the next 5 to 10 years if you get into the global competition. Why can't you be making parts for windmills that have 800 parts in them? We're going to be building tens of thousands of them across the country. Why aren't you going to be involved in the new train sets that are going to be built because the high-speed rail? Sonny keeps telling me, Joe, where's the Georgia piece of that high-speed rail? Am I not exaggerating, right? But all kidding aside, look, the sky's the limit, guys. You do what you do so well, why aren't you going to be able to be in the international and global market? You know, without high-speed internet, they can't do web video, they can't do audio, they can't speak to their customers or see their customers or have relationships with them that makes modern day success possible, because everybody else in the places of high-speed internet, that's where they're moving. Remember that old expression? You build a better mousetrap, the world will beat a path to your door. Well, you may have the best mousetrap in the world. If your customers can't see it, or potential customers can't see it, can't feel it, and can't talk to you about it, and can't get to you instantaneously, guess what? They're going to go to somebody they can do that with. And you lose out to lesser companies without such talent or workforce, without innovative projects and ideas that Impulse has to offer. And their ability to grow is stifled by being on the wrong side of the digital divide. But that's no longer going to happen here or in this part of Georgia, and God willing, throughout the country. Now, with more capacity and better reliability, customer service is going to improve. You can better compete around the world, and the business can grow even faster than it has been growing. Now look down the road to North Georgia College and State University. Right now, there's not enough bandwidth to beam language classes to nearly 600 students here in Lumpkin County High School that may not have every language teacher for the language they want. You may have it, you may not though, or the proper math teachers, or the access to the kind of talent that you could be made available streaming right into the high school for you. There may be not a Chinese teacher because you can't afford to have one. You may have a Spanish teacher, but you may not have a Japanese teacher. And there may be students who want access to that. Now with the broadband connection, distance learning becomes possible. And the 600 students can hear teachers at a university level made available to you in a classroom sitting right here in the county. There will be educational opportunities that today are totally unavailable to rural communities and rural schools. And look at the school's nursing programs. Right now, as Sonny can tell you, there is an extreme shortage of nurses all over America. You know why there's a shortage? Not because we don't have qualified people. My wife teaches full-time at a community college. They are oversubscribed all across America. I'm sure here in Georgia. You got talented women and men wanting to become nurses. We have a desperate need for them. You know what the problem is? We don't have enough teachers of nursing. The reason we don't? We pay a nurse who was an RN, who was a senior nurse sitting on the floor of a major hospital, a lot more money running that floor than we do if they come and teach. So there's a bottleneck now. Well, where do they have to turn? Well, they have nowhere to turn, as programs like North Georgia are at full capacity. Well, now the university can expand its remote branches. The idea of a classroom with 4 walls and a bell in the corner is changing rapidly. And the nursing schools realize that with broadband, they can bust through that bottleneck. They can meet the demand for nurses not by bringing more students to the classroom, but by bringing the classroom and the limited teachers to the students. And now look at the school system around here. On average, school systems in the region are spending less, and this, you're not unusual in this regard. This is the norm, not the exception. You're spending less than the cost of a pint of milk per year per student on internet services. One school system in the region here doesn't have any internet budget at all. That's unfair. That's unfair to the children in your school. One of the things Sonny keeps harping on is, and I agree on, the kids in this county, the kids in the rural part of my state, they're as smart, they're as competent, they're as capable, they're as ready. I really mean it. But guess what? If they're on the other side of that digital divide, it doesn't matter how smart they are. They get left behind. And it's unfair. It's unfair, particularly to the rural communities all across America. You know, it's like depriving them of a book or a desk. Only this is a more powerful learning tool than either one of those things. Kids who are living in a small town should have the same exact chance of any kid living in any urban, advanced section with wealthy constituencies in any part of America. As I said, they're as smart, they're as talented. All they lack is the tools that their peers have in Atlanta and New York and Los Angeles and Miami and some of the wealthier areas of the country. But not anymore. Dawsonville students will be able to keep up with their peers around the country, reap the benefits of technology and advanced learning in an environment that they don't have now. Look at medicine. You know, I heard about a lot about a Lumpkin County medical practitioner who set out to provide rapid response laboratory analysis for dozens of rural Georgia hospitals and surgical centers and doctors' clinics around here. That's his business. Only right now, with the antiquated internet connection, his response isn't so rapid. Lab results these days include big data files and include pictures. That takes a lot of bandwidth. And increasingly, medical tests that rely on video, and only Broadband is able to work and stream them to the hospitals that have the great expertise to make judgments. But with Broadband, he'd be able to speed things up, grow his capacity, help patients from all over the state get the care they quickly need, and he can do this all from the comfort of his office. But what's more important, he can relieve the anxiety of thousands of people in this county who, when they go in and have that test done, and they're not sure whether or not it is cancer, whether or not it is a congenital heart disease, whatever it is, you can get it immediately. Look, folks, in the process, it's not only going to save money, but it's going to save lives. Going to save lives. Being able to stream to the leading experts in the nation, the leading experts in this state, to make sure that everybody in rural America has the same medical access to the greatest medical competence in the state and the country, is what this is about. I had 2 cranial aneurysms. I don't know what would have happened when I had those operations where they gave me a pretty low chance of living, had it not been the fact that my docs, as they took the top of my head off to go in and find where that artery was bleeding and go down under my brain to clip that artery to make sure I stopped bleeding, what would have happened if I had not had? Probably 25% of the operation was just having me lie on the table while my 2 neurosurgeons went in and sat in a room in a teleconference with 5 other neurosurgeons around the country saying, okay, which way should we move now? Because if you move that clip this way, it may cause permanent brain damage for this or that or the other thing. Folks, rural America, a lot of America, still operates in a circumstance where they don't have access to that kind of expertise. It's going to save lives. It's going to save lives. You know, I could go on with 20 more examples about how this is literally going to revolutionize the way rural Georgia works, learns, and grows, and rural Delaware and rural Maine and all over the country. And it's not just, as I said, here in Georgia. We're doing this all over the country. In Maine, more than 1,000 miles of new broadband, that is, this cable will be laid to make it possible for doctors in Franklin County Healthcare Network to get an immediate contact with specialists in Boston to find out whether they're making the right decision, for quick diagnosis, for collaboration, for long-term patient treatment, saving money, saving lives. Upstate New York and parts of Vermont and Pennsylvania, we're helping to build more than 1,300 miles of broadband network that will immediately connect more than 100 libraries, state and community colleges, and healthcare clinics immediately. And in northern Ohio, 166 miles of new pipeline to build and support a smart grid technology. That increased bandwidth is going to allow local electric companies to receive real online information about energy use, saving their customers tens of millions of dollars and reducing energy consumption. So, To anyone who questions the boldness of the Recovery Act, I say, just ask your governor in this state. Ask governors all over, Democrat and Republican. And by the way, your governor deserves a ton of credit for this. Sonny has fought like the devil to make sure everyone in rural Georgia has the same and every single opportunity, whether you're a business, whether you're a hospital, whether you're a patient, whether you're a student, to succeed in this new, complicated, flat world. I told an example. We got the experts from Washington rode down with me. And I was telling them the example. I got 4 granddaughters, Sonny. My daughter, who's 28 and loves me and says, Daddy, you're not drinking enough fluid. Daddy, I got to be with you. She takes care of me. But, you know, granddaughters even better than daughters, because daughters kind of go in a tunnel between age 12 and 18, you know what I mean? They always love you, but sometimes don't like you. Granddaughters always love you and always like you. A little granddaughter. We live in a pond, Sonny. My son has a little kayak, and my granddaughter lost her Uncle Bo, my oldest son's kayak paddle, went over the dam. And she comes in, and I went in my library, and she's on the internet. I said, what are you doing, baby? She said she was then 8. She said, Pop, she said, my daddy gave me the credit card. I said, credit card for what? She said, I got to order Uncle Bo a new paddle. She's on the internet. I said, what are you doing? She said, the only paddle I could find, Daddy, was in Korea. She said, so I ordered one. He said, okay to order from Korea? And I said, couldn't you find an American company? But all kidding aside, here's an 8-year-old kid. An 8-year-old kid going on the internet, knows how to get on, and is ordering a paddle so her Uncle Bo, by the time he gets home, isn't mad that his kayak paddle's gone. Look, folks, this is a new time, a new age. This is a flat world. We want to make sure that you're able to compete in rural Georgia, have the same opportunities for a quality life, the same opportunities for jobs, innovation, and movement as they have anywhere in the country. So when I talk to Sonny Perdue, he's constantly telling me about small towns like this. He's always saying that some of the most untapped potential in America lives in towns like Dawsonville. I happen to agree with him. He says that if you're serious about building an economy for the future, that then they have to play a major role too. So that's what this is about. This is about building the future, folks. I think it's pretty exciting. Telemedicine, distance learning, real-time pricing for farmers. You want to know how much your crop is worth at that second and not have to go through a middleman. You want to press a button and sell the crop then? It changes the life. I don't have to talk to the Commissioner of Agriculture. He knows what I'm talking about. You want an expert radiologist in Atlanta to access your x-rays in a matter of seconds and give you the best possible diagnosis? You ought to be able to get it without having to get in a car, take that x-ray with you, drive to Atlanta, get an appointment. The cost it will save for the healthcare system. You want your children to have their fingerprints and the most accurate information to help them write the best possible essay at that moment. Now they can. And we're closing the gap and the needs to be closed, tearing down the barriers that have been put up for too long. We're building the untold benefits of technology and innovation into the life of everyone everywhere, including here in Dawsonville, Georgia. There's been studies that demonstrate how important this broadband access is to long-term economic growth, but you're going to feel it and see it with your own eyes and taste it. And that's a big reason why we're doing this, to begin to build the foundation for a newer, stronger, more resilient economy. As I said, not a bubble that's going to pop, but on a sturdy platform that's going to allow us to grow for generations. And we're building that broadband as a big step forward here in Georgia and across the country. There's a lot more to say about this, but I've already said, in a sense, too much, but not enough. The Recovery Act is making a strategic investment. It's not just about the jobs it creates today. There's all kinds of studies my staff wanted me to talk to you about showing how many jobs this creates, so what impact it has in communities that have gone from not having access to having access. Well, I think you all know it. I think you all feel it in your gut. Let me close by saying to Ron and his family, your ingenuity, your productivity, your ability to provide quality product and cutting-edge technology ought to be available to the whole world. It will benefit all of us. It'll benefit all of us. It'll increase the GDP here in Dawsonville, and it will be multiplied tens of thousands of times over with small business all across America. Because the President and I suspect Sonny believes that there's no reason why, with the ingenuity and capacity that exists here in the United States of America, they shouldn't have the same highway. 14 other countries have built better highways, the same highway to access to the markets and information that are needed. So I'm flattered to be with you here. I hope, and I make a prediction to you, I'll bet you 5 years from now, if you're crazy enough to invite me back, whether I'm in office or not, you invite me back, I'll lay 8 to 5. You have more square feet under roof than you have today. No, I'll make you that bet. I'll make you that bet. Because you're building a better mousetrap. You just got to make sure people know you're building it. So, Governor, thank you for the honor of being with you today. Thank you for the state ponying up ahead of everybody else and deciding this was a solid investment for the United States government to make. And as I said, the Recovery Act has other pieces, and I have a feeling I'm going to be talking to Sonny about high-speed rail before this is over. But I promise you, Sonny, I ain't making a pick. So, but you got a good project going here, and eventually, folks, we have to once again be the leader in the world. We have to lead the world. That's what we did in the 20th century. We got fat and happy a little bit in the last half of the 20th century, and we gotta claw our way back. We have all the resources. We got the best workforce. We got the greatest instinct for entrepreneurism, and with a little bit of help, the government getting out of the way when it should and providing seed money when it can, we ought to be able to be back in business in a way that our grandkids are going to have the same benefit and confidence about America's leadership in the world as we did when we were coming up. Thank you all very much for having me.